If you prefer a milder comedian, please ask for one and welcome Stuart Lee. Thank you very much. Thank you, Glasgow. Thank you. I'm Stuart Lee. Now, like me, you probably have a favourite high street coffee retail outlet. What's yours? Favourite high street coffee retail outlet? Costa. What is it? It's the first one that came into your head. What? It's the first one that came into your head and you panicked? What normally happens is I come through and then I say to someone, what's your favourite high street coffee retail outlet? And they say one, and I say, why is that? And normally the reason is there's some facts in it, and I come off, it's not your fault, you didn't know that it was. But I come off the back of it. And I do about 10, 15 seconds sort of semi-prepared kind of improv off that. And then I work round to what I want to talk about, which is Caffè Nero. I want to talk about the Caffè Nero. There's a Caffè Nero card there. But I like to disguise it as if it's just come out of a little chat, you know, because it struck me recently that the whole idea of a stand-up just beginning a set is it's very contrived, isn't it? You just sort of come out and you suddenly volunteer an opinion about something apropos of nothing. If you had a friend that did that, you'd think they were really... If you had a friend and you went, hello, and he went, hello, I dislike wool, you'd go, that's why... So I've tried to make it... But here in Glasgow, people are very... You're not forgiving, are you? You're not giving, it's just like... I don't know. Well, the smoke's all gone, and I haven't got... I'll go off, and then I'll just come out and I'll just go into straight talk. I'll just come on and I'll immediately talk about the... Forget this. And anyway, he was supposed to film that anyway. He was right up there, so that won't even register nothing there. Fucking waste of time. Glasgow, if you prefer a milder comedian, please ask for one and welcome Stuart Lee. Hey, Glasgow, Citizens Theatre. What a pleasure to be here. I'm Stuart Lee, and my favourite high street coffee retail outlet is Caffè Nero. Now, there's two reasons, Glasgow, why I like Caffè Nero, which I must admit, cheers for it there, it's never been so warmly received in any other part of the country as it is here, where in Glasgow, typically, there's a very sectarian attitude towards coffee outlets. The Caffè Nero fans over there, the Costa fans over here, never the twain shall meet. Caffè Nero, now there's two reasons I like Caffè Nero. First of all, I like Caffè Nero because I often go there in the company of a small 2-year-old boy, and they never once refuse to warm his milk. I should point out at this juncture, Glasgow, Citizens Theatre, that the 2-year-old boy is my son. I've not been going out socially with a 2-year-old boy. Oh no. And if I was, I wouldn't take him to Caffè Nero, would I, madam? That's not the kind of thing they like. Coffee and bread and napkins. The sort of thing a little 2-year-old boy, it's it for you if you have to entertain one. Take him to these places, right? They're normally called things like Pirates Adventure Castle or Pirates Adventure Activity Centre, and they're in old warehouses, and they're full of all the pirate stuff that little boys like, all the pirate stuff like rigging. You can climb up, all the pirate stuff, and masts, you can slide down, all the pirate stuff, and tanks full of blue plastic balls, all the pirate stuff like they had in the piracy times. On the Spanish Main, the tank of blue plastic balls. And little boys love them. But conversely, the Pirates Adventure Castle Activity Centre is a terrible place, Glasgow, to go out socially with a pirate. You'd think they'd love it, wouldn't you? But for a pirate, a visit to the Pirates Adventure Castle Activity Centre is very much a busman's holiday. As I learnt to my shame and regret upon the receipt of this furious letter. Dear Stuart, I thought we could be friends, but it appears not. You took me, a pirate, to a Pirates Adventure Castle Activity Centre on our very first date. I can't believe it. What's wrong with you? Would you take a black person to the Museum of Slavery? Was this your idea of a joke? The Pirates Adventure Castle Activity Centre indeed, Stuart Lee. And me standing there, looking at a childish mural of a one-legged, one-eyed man stealing treasure. It made me feel incredibly self-conscious about my wooden leg, my eye patch, and my pocket stuffed with stolen doubloons. The Pirates Adventure Castle Activity Centre, my foot. Okay, now normally the people would come in faster on that. There was a pause, wasn't there? And then some people down here, and then nothing here, and then after a few seconds, some other people laugh. Now, this is for, I'm recording this for a DVD release tonight, and I would appreciate it if you'd all just start to concentrate a bit more and try and come in faster on things, because it was okay. There's people down here they're all right, like here, and then the rest of them. Let's have a look at this and see. Let's see what it is you're having trouble with it. Okay, the Pirates Adventure Castle Activity Centre, my foot. Yeah. Now, my foot, that's a dismissive figure of speech, isn't it? Oh, my foot, we all use that, yeah? Okay, but why it's funny here is because in this previous paragraph of the letter, and I wrote this, remember, it's not a real letter. The pirate, that's me, he says that he has a wooden leg. Yeah, so my foot later, that's a callback to that, right? It's a funny, it's like something Harry Hill would do. Okay? It's not hilarious, right? But normally, I would expect more than just a pocket of people and then a delayed reaction around the room for it, okay? And the worry for me about this, and it should be a worry for you as well, is that this bit, the pirate's letter, this is like the fun bit at the top of the show. Okay, the show's about 80, 90 minutes long. The last 45 minutes of it, you know, is hard done. Neither I nor many critics have even been able to work out if it's supposed to be funny. It's hard, and the worry for me is if you're not going for this, the funny letter, you know, that's looking like an arid section of. To just try. There are people here that they're coming in fast. You know, you can listen. I'm not annoyed with you. I don't want to get off on the wrong. You know, I really appreciate so many people coming, but I do think this is the biggest crowd I've done in Glasgow, and I think that it has necessarily thinned it out a bit in terms of your, you know. This is the old crowd that will come and see me. Here, they're operating fast. The rest of you are like, what? You know, what's this supposed to be? And like, it's, you know, you have my sympathy. You know, it's 2010. It's a weird time to be for stand-up. You know, it's a weird old time because you sit at home, don't you, all of you, watching Michael McIntyre on the television, spoon-feeding you his warm diarrhea. You know. I'm not going to be doing that. You know, I haven't noticed anything about your lives. They're not of interest to me. It's a letter from a pirate. It's not about going to the shops or anything. Okay, there isn't going to be time to go over everything in this level of detail. We just try and... Okay, well, I'll just finish this bit and then we'll... I'd only like another little bit of it. I'll finish this and then we'll go back to the coffee bit. The Pirates Adventure Castle Activity Centre, my foot. Yeah, it doesn't matter now. As a pirate, I've spent my whole professional life climbing, rigging, sliding down masts, and jumping into pools of blue plastic ball. And I have no desire to continue to do this in my spare time. Shiver me timbers. Yours, B. Beard. That's finished now. Second thing that I like. Blackbeard, isn't it? The second thing that I like about the Cafe Nero is the Cafe Nero loyalty card. There are 9 little stamps on here. It is full, right? But when I presented this at the Cafe Nero in Oxford Street in London last June, it was rejected, and I wonder if you can see why that might have been rejected. So normally it's just quick. No, and you hand it back. You know what? I've done this 120 times this show. Sometimes people have struggled, but no one's ever just given up immediately. Look at it again, you lazy man. Huh? It is stamped. It is stamped. I told you there's 9 stamps on it. It isn't meant to be like a... They're not faded. It is stamped. This has never ever taken this long. And it would be the night it's... There's not 7 stamps on it. Right, look. Normally, I just hand this down immediately. What are they? Look, what's that there?
That's not a stamp.
It is a stamp. It's...
That's 7 stamps.
It's 7 red ones, and what colour are those?
That's just not even a stamp.
It is a stamp.
That's a blank space.
That's a blue stamp.
No, that's a blue stamp and a blue background.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what colour background it's on, it's still a stamp.
There's no stamps.
There are stamps there. Look, I wouldn't have given this to you if it was wrong, would I? Because it obviously leads into the rest of what I'm trying to talk about. So I wouldn't have handed you something that didn't support the following hour of the show.
The problem was you didn't get your free coffee, which is because you only had 7 stamps.
No, I got... This is just appalling. This is my one chance, mate, to film this. And you...
You're 2 stamps short of a coffee.
No, I'm not. They're not. That's because they're blue. It doesn't matter what colour background they're on.
You've got a nice N shape here with you. That's it.
It doesn't matter what shape it's in. It's just...
There's no stamp there. There's no ink.
There is this blue ink there.
There's no blue. There's blue ink and a blue background.
Yeah, but you just said there wasn't any ink, and then you said there's blue ink on a blue background.
I don't know what colour the background was before you stamped it.
It was blue.
You've got a blue background. You've got 7 reds. You've got 2 blanks.
They're blue. They're not blank. They're blue.
As far as I'm concerned, you're another couple of Americano shot.
God. Look, what normally happens, right, is I just pass this down anywhere else in the country. I apart from Glasgow, where I chose to film this. I just give this to someone in the front row. They go, oh, there's 7 red, 2 blue. This man's got into a metaphysical debate about how the blue ink doesn't count because it's on a blue back. It doesn't matter. There's 2. And now what's happened is the whole room is suspicious and doubts. This isn't supposed to be a big deal. It's just a bit of fun at the stop. He's doing his best. I think the problem is now everyone's going to either... Look, here's an enlarged one, right? Can you see? Still a terrible doubt amongst the Glasgow skeptics. Look, this is as big as my scanner goes. Can you now see? Can you see now that there's 2... Yeah, they're blue, yeah. Look, what I've done, just because I've done a painting of it, right? Now this was rejected by the Cafe Nero. Not this wasn't rejected. I didn't go in with this and go, can I have a free coffee? I've got this. This wasn't rejected. This was rejected. Right, but this is basically, it's the same, just I've done it bigger. Now the problem seemed to be, from what I could work out, that the first 3 ends there are red, ends 1 through 3. The second 2 ends, ends 4 and 5, despite a lot of hostility here, are blue. And the last 4 ends, ends 6 through 9, there are... What's going on there, then? That funny, is it? The scraping. In front of a Glasgow audience who sat stony-faced through the my-foot wooden leg callback. We went to the Citizens Theatre on Monday in the comedy festival, and a man came out at the start, and it was dreadful. There were all these words, and you were supposed to listen to them, and colours you were supposed to identify. It was awful. We were going to go. But then, after about 10 minutes, he scraped a microphone stand on a bit of old card. Oh, it's marvellous. It's like something Harry Lauder would have done in the same venue 1,000 years ago. The problem seemed to be Glasgow, that these 2 were blue, and the suspicion was that I'd faked them. The implication being, let's think about it, let's follow it through. That I'd harvested the first 4 ends, the first 3 ends, harvested the first 3 ends through the normal Cafe Nero purchasing award procedure. Then I'd become impatient. And I'd thought, I don't think I can wait for my heavily discounted coffee, so I'd gone away, got a little courgette or a bit of okra or something, or a chip like you would use. And I'd carved a tiny N into the top of it, stamped out 2 of my own ends, unbeknownst to me in an inadmissible colour, and then lost my nerve. Lost my taste for crime. I thought, oh no, stealing 2 ninths of a cup of coffee, that's enough for me. I'm not a career criminal. So I'd gone away and I'd gathered the final 4 points there through the... You like that, do you? That's great. Do you know what? I probably won't be able to give you the show you want. I'll put extra scraping in. I was annoyed with the barista at Cafe Nauru because the implication was not only that I was fraudulent, but also that I was cowardly and sort of lacked the resolve to see the crime through. And I was embarrassed as well, and this probably sounds like the ramblings of a sort of egomaniac, but this was June last year, and in April, March last year, I did a telly thing for BBC Two. It was the first bit of telly I'd done for over a decade, and I was just worried that someone in the queue was going to recognise me and go, oh look, there's that bloke off the telly, there's that bloke off the telly trying to steal 2 nights of a cup of coffee. But as it happened, I needn't have worried because the viewing figures were actually so low. But I was less likely to be recognised as me than I was to hear someone go, oh look, Terry Christian's let himself go. Oh look, Morrissey's let himself go. Oh look, Edwin Collins has let himself go. Oh look, Ray Liotta's let himself go. Oh look, Todd Carty's let himself go. Oh look, Leonardo DiCaprio's let himself go. Oh look, KD Lang's let himself go. Oh look, Hattie Jakes has let himself go. Oh look, the lead singer of UB40's let himself go. Oh look, a 1930s newspaper cartoon of Tarzan's face has let himself go. So in the end, I lost my temper with the barista at Cafe Nehru. And I said to her the first thing that came into my middle-aged, middle-class, liberal, broadsheet newspaper reading mind. I said to her, this is absolute nonsense. I said to her, quite frankly, this is absolute corporate flim-flam. Then I stormed out of the Cafe Nehru. I say stormed out, I was pushing a pram. Right? I stormed as far as the door and I tried to sort of wedge that. And an old lady went, can I help you? And I went, well, I'm storming out. And she said, it is stormy, isn't it, for June? And I stormed past her, I stormed along the street for about 400 yards, and then I remembered that I'd left the milk warming up in the microwave at the Cafe Nero. Now, you can't storm out of somewhere in a rage against the corporate homogenisation of the high street and then immediately go back in pleading for milk. So what I did, Glasgow, I waited about 30 minutes, and then I went back in. I went, hello, and she went, yeah. I went, it's me. And she went, oh, the false end, man. And I went, well, that was... I didn't do that. It was one of your, other shops. And she went, what? And I went, well, you've got my milk. And she went, well, it's gone cold now. And I went, yeah, can I have it back? And I thought, I can't do it here. It's embarrassing. So I went over the road to... there's a Starbucks opposite there on the Soho Square. I went in there. I said, oh, this has happened, And they went, well, yeah, have some... They gave me some boiled water. And I went in there. I went in the toilet there and basically, if you remember, what happened was I went in the Cafe Nero. Yeah, and there was an altercation involving the loyalty card. And I thought, I could write a routine about that. That's the kind of thing you like now, isn't it? I've seen it on Live at the Apollo, or stuff about going to the shops. I couldn't really think of an end for it. I'm 41. Well, I've been doing this 20 odd years now. I can't just change to what's... I don't know how to do that. I'm 41, and about 5 months ago, I read an interview with the 38-year-old comedian Frankie Boyle, and he said that no one over 40 should do stand-up. he said, most comedians are rubbish once they hit 40, and their focus and anger really goes. Look at that! Look at the rage in the brushstrokes, look at it! That's the work of a furious man, look! I was absolutely livid when I painted this. Satirical attack on an administrative error in the Cafe Nero loyalty card system. Look at it! Look! Has Frankie Boyle got a painting of a Cafe Nero loyalty card that he's done himself? That he takes round all his 30 grand corporate gigs, waving in the face of the management of Tesco's at Christmas. Look at this. You can see where he's coming from. Yeah, he's 38 years old. He's a young man. He's still got the rage. Frankie boy, he's got the anger, he's got the righteous fury of youth is on his side. And I envy him. Frankie boy, I saw him on this programme. He's furious. I don't know what it's called, the programme. There's a mic, all the angry young comics are on it. No, I'm not on it. There's a microphone stand in the middle of a ring, and they run towards it. The angriest one gets there first. I don't know what it's called. There's Frankie Boyle. There's another one. He's old. He's got a moustache and he's bald. He's like a musketeer. Or a Spanish nobleman. A highwayman. There's a little young one. Someone's nephew, I think. He's just happy to be there. He thinks it's magical. Blinking away in the lights. And they're all furious, and Frankie Boyle's the angriest. And when I saw it, he was the angriest one on it, and he ran towards the microphone stand. The others went, go on, mate, you know that. They're about to speak, you know, but then they realise he's the most angry. They let him go. He got to the microphone stand. I don't know if you saw it. And on this occasion, he was angry about the Queen's vagina. Frankie Boyle, he was absolutely furious about the Queen's vagina. He was red in the face with rage about it. Thought he was going to have a heart attack. It was particularly about how old it was. This had irked him. Particularly the age of the Queen's vagina. He pushed old Frankie Boyle off the edge to a frenzy. But through the red mist, Frankie Boyle, he was able to speculate that the Queen's vagina was so old that it would be haunted. And this had annoyed him especially, the fact that the Queen's vagina would be haunted had made Frankie Boyle insane with hate. Now, I'm by no means an expert on the supernatural. But my understanding of hauntings is that the age of the structure is immaterial. And that they're most likely to occur at the scene of a terrible tragedy. That's the best joke in the show. And they're still coming in first down here, aren't they? And all the other people go, oh, what's that about? Come on. DVD record, come on. Team A there. One bloke clapping alone at them. No good, is it? Listen to that hell. He was furious though about the Queen's vagina. Frankie Boyle. Now, I'm 41. I don't mind about the Queen's vagina. At my age, if I think about the Queen's vagina, I'm worst ambivalent about it. 18 months ago, when I was young, it would have driven me over the edge. I tell you, 18 months ago, Glasgow, when I was young, if I'd thought about the Queen's vagina, even for just a nanosecond, I would have been so angry that I'd happily have punched every single one of you in the face. But not anymore, you know? I'm a 41-year-old, I'm old. I'm a 40-something parent of a 2-year-old child. I spend most of my time hanging around playgrounds in northeast London with other 40-something parents of young children. They're not angry about the Queen's vagina. Very rarely even comes up. You know, we're angry about grown-up stuff. We're angry about the collapse of the infrastructure in the inner city. We're angry about the lack of educational provision for our kids in London. A friend of mine, he had a little girl. It turned out she was dyslexic. And they were worried about whether she would thrive and prosper in the oversubscribed inner city London school system. So they sold up and they left London. They moved to the countryside, and the little girl went to school in the countryside. And she's grown up to be a racist. Who can spell? It's the most dangerous kind. I thought about moving to the countryside. I got a 2-bedroom flat in Hackney. I worked out I could have sold it and got a house somewhere like North Wales or Herefordshire. I saw this house in Herefordshire advertised on the internet. It said it had a garden. I haven't got a garden where I live. It said it had a river running through the garden. I haven't got a river running through the garden. I haven't got a garden. But at the bottom of the page, the estate agent had put, from the kitchen window, you can see otters. Yeah, otters. That raises the bar, doesn't it? We've got a lovely property you might be interested in, Mr. Lee. Are there? Visible otters. No. Oh dear. But if you remember when I first came in, I did make it very clear to you that I suffer from an allergy to anything that is not an otter. I suffer from an allergy to all non-otter objects. So you can imagine how important it is to me to be. No, it is real. It's not. It is. Well, the reason you haven't heard of it is because anyone that has that, they immediately die. This was my, it's very much my last hope. There's only 3 or 4 of them there. Well, it's a start. You know, it's a start. Hey? You feel that, given that it's an important gig, especially with the sort of messy bit with the card at the beginning, it's ill-advised of me to set off at this point on an unplanned improvisation. Yeah, it's very interesting. But you would think that. There was one bloke really liking it. I don't know if you heard it. It's going, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, the problem now is it's going sort of... It's going almost well enough to persist with, but... You know, if you were me, you'd have got out on the phrase visible otters. Yeah. Yes, thank you. Good one. Now, where I live, otters. It's ludicrous. Where I live, in Hackney, in North East London, from my kitchen window, I can see rats running along the high street, going under the fire station. The rats are out of control in most major cities. I'm sure it's the same here. Now, there's an old Victorian park where I live, Clissold Park. I walk through it every day. I was walking through it in September, and I saw, this is true, I saw a middle-aged, middle-class mum with a little girl about 3 years old, and the little girl was feeding bread out of a brown paper bag to a mixture of ducks, pigeons, and rats, right? There's about 8 rats there running around going, is this allowed now? Have they changed the... And I said to her, what are you doing? And she said, do you mind? I don't want her to grow up to be afraid of rats. We're supposed to be afraid of rats, aren't we? It's deep within our human evolutionary DNA patterns. Fear the rats, run away from them so they don't weave Viles disease into your face. And I wouldn't mind, but there's signs up all around the park saying, please do not feed the pigeons and ducks, as it encourages rats. Now, sure, implicit within that, it's the suggestion, do not feed the rats, as it encourages rats. Because they are rats. Rats are rats. Anyway, I went to look at this otter place in Herefordshire, and it was all right, but I thought, I better go and look at the pub in the village, because that's all there is to do in the countryside. So, I went and looked at the pub in the village in the countryside, and I realised I could never live in the countryside, because the pub in the village in the countryside was full, exclusively, of middle-aged men dressed from head to toe in supermarket denim, who all looked and sounded exactly like Jeremy Clarkson. And I realised I could never live in the countryside, because living in the countryside would be like living in an endless edition of Top Gear. And I hate Top Gear. One bloke cheering there, Jim. There's one bloke cheering. Yeah, there's one person clapping. There's a little pocket, isn't there, spread across here and here and here, of like the liberal Top Gear haters. On the whole, here tonight in Glasgow, probably the majority of the audience are going, well, we like Top Gear, it's funny, what's your... Why? The problem is I hate Top Gear. And I hate anyone that likes it. Right, and I'm going to explain why that is for about 45 minutes. Okay, and then there's a little bit about cider, and then that's the end. Okay, so you have to try and... All right? Okay, now, right, the reason I hate Top Gear, and even if you're a Top Gear viewer, like most of you are, you have to relate to this. The reason I hate Top Gear is because it is willfully and deliberately politically incorrect, right? And the problem is I was a student in the 1980s in the kind of era of political correctness, and when I became an alternative comedian in the 80s, it was all CND benefits and whatever. So I like political correctness, I think it's good. So I can't relate to Top Gear. But I don't think it's aimed at me, right? It's aimed at a different kind of middle-aged man, isn't it? A kind of frightened middle-aged man in his house and scared of how the world's changing and political correctness has gone mad, and he likes to watch Top Gear don't you? Because it pays no heed to the political correctness or the women's rights or the gays' rights or the true environmental facts. He likes to watch Top Gear, this man. He likes to see Jeremy Clarkson sneer at a Sikh on his behalf.